Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Crush It in Sales podcast. I am super excited that you joined me. Thank you in advance. If you don't know who I am, my name is Melinda Van Fleet, and I'm a sales, strategy, and success coach for businesswomen. This week, I want to circle back on a topic, actually two topics, that I think are crucial to business success, whether you're in sales or not. And I actually think it's crucial to life success. And that is understanding how to avoid distractions and also recognizing that it's a test. So the topic of things being a test really falls more under the Good Karma Success Coach podcast, which is my other podcast. So if you do not listen to that podcast, that conversation normally about tests or the universe or energy normally falls under that podcast. However, I feel strongly, and especially in recognizing that more and more people are becoming more aware of energetics, to bring it up in this podcast too. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes for an article I wrote on Medium back on February 7th that is about being tested. So if you wish to learn more about this concept, if it's something new for you, or you just want to get stronger in building your awareness around how we're always being tested, definitely read that article, because I share some really great stories and good tips in that article. It is definitely one of my favorite articles. But what I started to think about and why I wanted to bring it up again on this podcast is how I was tested about a week ago when I was on my walk with listening to some content. And it's a story I share again in the Good Karma Success Coach podcast, episode 185, about how everyone has a dark day, and there's tools I share for you to move through having a dark day. And that, in hindsight, when I started thinking about that share, about the piece of content that I was listening to that didn't serve me, I really realized it's a test. And often we are presented with tests that are distractions. And the more you start to recognize these distractions and move through them, the stronger you will get in your business, in your life, and also with your time management. Time management is so important. I'm sure you would agree. So what I want to share today is, in addition to a Crush It in Sales podcast, episode 119, and I know I'm referring to a lot of different pieces of content, and I'll get to also why in a few minutes. But that podcast episode 119 of the Crush It in Sales podcast, is called 3 Tips to Eliminate Distractions and Skyrocket Your Success. So this morning when I was putting this all together, my mind is like a blender. If you read Life and Love Lessons, I actually have that as a chapter that I feel like I'm a blender of putting all these different things together and then spitting out something that is transformative. I share 3 tips, and I'll share them really fast here, but definitely go back and listen to that podcast episode or read again the Medium article that came out on January 13th, and all these links will be in the show notes. So I took that podcast and I put it into an article as well, a blog. Tip number 1 that I shared was building an awareness around what works for you. Tip number 2 was eliminating distractions. And then tip number 3 was building upon what do you really need. And again, when I went back and listened to this podcast, it was very compelling. I wouldn't change a thing. I love the podcast. I would stand by those tips. But now I see, because of what I see going on out there in the land, the social media land, in the land of how people are performing at work, in the land of overwhelm, in the land of anxiety, in the land of life and business, I really feel that it's important to call out where you can do a deep dive, and hence why it kind of all goes together with understanding you're being tested, with listening to certain content, and understanding, what serves me and what doesn't. And where do I need to cut my time being spent doing things? And whether you decide to use that time to spend more time with yourself, like self-care, or with your family or your friends or in your business, it's really, really, really important to get a handle on that. And unfortunately, that's what's going on out there. People are all over the board, distracted by all these different things, and they're not getting a handle on it and really thinking about it. So when you start to realize that these are tests and go, am I passing the test or am I failing the test? Then it starts to put it into perspective, and actually, in a way, I would say kind of makes it more fun when you're kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm turning this off now because it doesn't serve me, and yay, I just passed the test. It happens all the time. Look at all the ways that you're consuming content. It could be Facebook groups. Are you in someone's Facebook group just to be like a cheerleader and cheering them on, hoping you're going to get some business? Why are you doing that? A lot of Facebook groups were promoting this. I feel like it's died down a little bit, but it could be my perception because I'm not on Facebook as much anymore. But that was a huge thing going on, right? People are hiring VAs. I did it myself last year to be like driving the algorithm. That's a distraction. Didn't even serve me at all. It might serve some other people out there, but it didn't serve me. It was a distraction. Another thing that was a distraction and a time management issue that I learned from on my own, and with all of these tips, I do encourage people to figure out what works for them and what makes them feel good. And I'm just sharing mine as examples to maybe create some aha moments, right? So with watching people's live coaching that I used to do, I was following some coaches and paying for these coaches for their programs. And they were always saying, you should watch this live for the energy. And I was like, what? But I would try it, right? I would try it during the day when I probably should have been doing something else. I didn't feel any difference in energy from them. Nothing became more clear or more compelling than if I watched it as a recording when I'm in the morning having my coffee. And then I started to think, like, again, are they doing it for their algorithm with Facebook? What's going on here? So again, a distraction. It was a test. I had to realize it was a distraction and I had to stop it. So now, if and when I do watch someone's videos, which is much less than I did in the past, I do it on my own time, having a cup of coffee. I understand what was a distraction, what was a test, and made a choice that now I spend my time more wisely for my business and my life, and I feel much more successful. The other aspect that I'm going to ask you to look at, especially, well, I should say this, it really relates if you are a content creator. I'm going to put it that way. Because if you're not a content creator, this probably won't be relatable to you. But we all have, as content creators, so much existing content already. So constantly creating more and more content in all these different mediums on all these different platforms can be a distraction as well. Think about it. Your brain may be going, oh my gosh, I need to create. And you could be doing something else and allowing that creativity and that content to flow to you. So often we forget that we're our own best resource, which is why I put this podcast together. I took 2 Medium articles and a podcast and mentioned another podcast and added in some new flavor, kind of like a recipe if you think about it, added in some extra spices and some new examples, and voila, effortlessly, without being distracted by all these other things, I was able to create this podcast for this week. In the meantime, I've let go of some other things that I was distracted by. And I shouldn't say let go. I've just kind of put them on the back burner for right now. So my back burner right now is my Facebook group, because honestly, there are so many Facebook groups out there. They don't get anything in the algorithm. People are just, I think, overloaded with Facebook groups. I'm not seeing great engagement in many Facebook groups anymore. It's very, very sad. So moving that along. My email list, if I do it once a month, I'm happy with that. Again, people are getting way too many emails. I'm okay with that. I'd rather share a Medium article or my blog on my website. And then the third thing is the YouTube video. I love doing the YouTube video, but honestly, doing hair and makeup, moving everything upstairs to our little studio, that's a time management distraction. Yes, it's a time management distraction. So if I don't have time for that video once a week, that's also going to go on the back burner. So 3 things I've put on the back burner: my newsletter, the Facebook group, Beyond Basic, and my transformational tip video. I'm sticking to being focused on podcasts, blogging, and just general posting and connecting, spending time really connecting with people. So eliminating distractions within your own content is another thing to look at. Where can you repurpose? Because let's face it, has everyone read your content? Has everyone watched every video? Has everyone listened to every podcast? No. And your audience is growing all the time, right? And if someone did listen to it or hear it, are they doing the work and embodying it so they truly transform? Likely not, right? So giving a good little reminder is not a bad thing. So if you kind of take it and shake it all up, you can really minimize distractions within your own bank of content. Looking at what you wish to eliminate, looking at what you wish to continue and tweak, maybe add to the recipe and move forward. So there's a lot of little tips and nuggets in here. That's why I wanted to record this podcast, just because I've had these new aha moments and revelations from being tested, really from being tested. And I wanted to share that in my journey with all of you. Because, I'm using my 3-5 in my human design. Let's put it that way. So it's definitely a fascinating journey. So then it actually makes it fun for me to record these podcasts, because hopefully some of my little aha moments will make you think and go, oh yeah, I get it. I kind of do that too. I can tweak, pivot, change, transform, evolve, and get a little better, a little stronger, and see more business and life success. So I hope you love this podcast. Please feel free to connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Those are really the ones I'm hanging out on now. And you can feel free to email me at melinda@melindavanfleet.com. As I mentioned in the Good Karma Success Coach episode 185, I also do laser coaching. So if you're like, I don't want to sign up for a big, long coaching package, I really just need some help on something specifically that I hear Melinda talk about, and I would love some more information, we can chat about setting up a special package that's just on an hourly basis. I feel like that's really missing out there in the land, and I'm more than happy to offer that. I've started offering that last year. I just don't talk about it much, so I'm going to start talking about it more and more because I think it's important, and I wish that was something that I would have done last year, and even, since I started in this space, maybe in 2019, 2020, instead of having these huge investments that, I was doing worksheets and filling out stuff, and it was just a waste of time. Let's get to the chase, people. So anyhow, if you're interested, reach out to me, Melinda@melindavanfleet.com. And I hope you love this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next week, I hope you crush it in sales. Thanks. Bye.